Hey everyone, welcome back to the Building Bigger Lives podcast. Michael Regan once again with my fabulous co-host Catherine Peterson. And today we are more than excited to bring a guest into the fold, one that you're already aware of if you've read the header, but hopefully you'll learn a heck of a lot about. Our friend Geoff Zimpfer is here. He's going to tell us a lot about things that maybe you don't already know about building a platform, but a lot of that comes from the fact that he's built an amazing brand that I think today is probably the number one brand in the housing industry space. He certainly has the number one podcast in the space, 375 episodes and counting as of the date we're recording. He's also the author of a great book, Disrupt or Die. We'd love to learn a little bit more about where the inspiration for the book came from. And of course, he's busy training people on why platform building is so important. And in our space, I think he highlights the three most important areas. We'll dig into those. But Catherine, I think before I set this up any further, welcome back in. It's always great to be with you on our podcast.
Thanks, Michael. Glad to be here and excited to interview Geoff today. He's been interviewing people for a long time himself, so it's kind of fun to interview the interviewer. So with that, welcome, Geoff.
Thank you very much. It's a thrill to be here. Congratulations to both of you for what is obviously building and creating a momentum and impacting people in the industry with your own podcast. So I'm applauding you across the video stream here.
Thanks for that. We're so happy that you're here. And Michael, I know that you had a couple questions that you were burning to ask. So I'm going to let you fire off on that first one that we talked about.
Well, Geoff, let's do the proper thing, because I make the assumption that most people are aware of you because you've had such great visibility, but maybe they don't know the story behind the story. I mean, you certainly didn't just wake up one day and say, hey, let's become a great sales trainer. Let's become a great podcast host. You were doing things in this space and probably saw the opportunity to maybe level up what was available to folks. Where did the inspiration for the Mortgage Marketing Institute come from? What was the backstory that led to the launch of this brand?
Oh, great question. I would say the backstory started for when I was an originator in 2003. I got in this industry. You know, my background prior to that, a little bit diverse in terms of sales opportunities, but the one that, you know, people love to hear about is that I actually was a sales trainer and a coach with Tony Robbins. That goes back a long, long ways, more than we probably want to count. But that was like my first incredible training experience where, you know, I would live in a different city for 2 months at a time, and we would travel to different cities and promote Tony's seminars. And one of the main things we had to do there is we had to do a lot of activities that were cold calls, cold presentations. So this will relate to what we talk about here today, but we would imagine being in a city and you would have this list of companies to contact, and you would have to cold call these companies in a lot of cases and set up presentations to go in and give presentations to salespeople of every genre and industry you can imagine, from Mary Kay to you know, stockbrokers, mortgage, real estate, you name it, right? And we would do that two times a day on average, minimum 5 times a week, sometimes 3, sometimes Saturdays. And so I did that for several years and got, you know, I would say a certain amount of skill. As you guys probably well know, presenting, speaking, interviewing, it's one of those skills that's always evolving. But I would say I developed a good base of being able to show up cold and walk out of there with money, meaning people would buy tickets to Tony's events. So fast forward, at some point I, you know, changed careers and got into the mortgage industry through various serendipitous kind of, you know, relationships that I had. And long and short of it is when I got started in the mortgage business in 2003, I don't know if you guys ever had this happen to you, but you get into something new or different and you kind of have amnesia, like you forget what you've learned. And I instead of leveraging what I learned those days in Tony Robbins out of the gate, is I copied what everybody else was doing. So I saw loan officers who were cold calling, who were door knocking and going to open houses and going to broker previews and doing the coffee meetings and et cetera. And I said, well, that must be what works in this industry. So let me do that. And I did. And it didn't work that well. It works, but it works haphazardly, kind of up and down. And it's not a very leveraged activity. So for me, being the breadwinner at home, we had our first child, Zach. He was 6 months old at that time. He's now 23. So there you go. That's how time goes. But I had to make a lot of money. I had to get results fast, right? And so my boss put my Countrywide Home Loans business card box down on my desk and said, go get yourself some realtors, Geoff. And so that's what I did, what everybody else does. And I'm like, 6 months in, got a HELOC that I took out on the house because it wasn't happening fast enough. And so all of a sudden I must have hit my head again because amnesia went away. And I was like, wait a minute. If the game is reach as many realtors as I possibly can in the shortest amount of time, why am I doing this onesie twosie? And so the lights came back on. I said, Geoff, you know how to actually put on events and classes. You know how to get in front of a room. Why don't you do that? Now, here's the funny thing. I was in a new industry. And so I still was, didn't have certainty. I still was scared to do this. I did not get up and start speaking, even though I could, because I had lost confidence in that ability, because there was a certain amount of intimidation, I'll be honest with you, with some realtors. Anyway, fast forward is like, I started hiring other speakers to come in. And then eventually I, realized that I'm the person who needs to be at the front of the room, because it's my personal brand. It's not theirs. Even though that got results, I'm looking to build my personal brand connections. And, anyway, that's fast forward to how I did that for 10 years as an originator. And then bottom line, to get to your ultimate question, what was the inspiration for Mortgage Marketing Institute? It's really that. It's that myself and the people that I saw and still see today seem to consistently struggle with moving their business forward, with getting real growth and momentum. And especially today, right? We have all these new ways and means and methods of growing our awareness and platforms and social, et cetera. So it's a bit confusing. And I just think, quite honestly, I transitioned out of originating into what was more my gifts. So if you dotted line that back to the Tony Robbins thing, why did I do that even 35 years ago? It's because I felt compelled and drawn to that. And now I get to do this through the industry that I learned a lot in, and that served me. And I get hopefully to help some other originators shorten their learning cycle and get better results. Does that make sense? Does that answer it?
So what I hear in there, Geoff, is you really naturally had a blue ocean strategy, but your amnesia kept you from executing on it until that moment changed. And so let's talk about that moment change. I mean, once you realized, I have this background, I have this training, I am aware of how to differentiate myself, I have a UVP. How easy was it for you to let go then of some of the habits you had created over whatever period of time you had mimicked the LOs that had told you, hey, this is how to go to an open house, this is how to cold call? How quickly were you able to make that transition? And once you did you ever look back?
That's a great question. I think, so here's what popped in my head when you asked that question. I just got sold on the idea of one to many. I remember doing a class and we had 150 agents in the class. And we had 2 classes back to back because it was so full, overflow. And I'm thinking, the meetings with agents, the conversations with agents, which is what ultimately we want to have. I mean, it was like fish in a barrel, right? It's just like, I can be choosy about who I decide to follow up with or not, because I've got hundreds of agents on my list who expressed interest in learning more about the thing. So once you get a taste of that, like the whole cold calling and dropping off champagne bottles, which is what I used to do when they got new listings and all that. Yeah, you get sold on it pretty quick because you realize you don't have to chase. And then all of a sudden that reverses, and they're now attracted to you because all of a sudden your brand is looked at differently because you're not chasing or pursuing. You're not leading with what most often they hear, which is products and price. You're actually creating this, platform in your local market of value, and the attachment to the other people, concepts, ideas that you're bringing in, the attachment to the fact that you're being a leader or leading with education, that just shifts everything dynamically. And then you're like, okay, yeah, it'll never go back.
Mm-hmm. I think one thing I love about that strategy is you think what I heard from that is you thought about yourself differently. And you thought about your strategy differently and were able to apply that to kind of explode your business because you were like, oh, I'm actually good at this. I know what I'm doing. So it builds that confidence so quickly. And I think that's what comes across with you so well, just out in the world, in the mortgage world, we'll call it, when I've seen you out and about, is you have a confidence that you carry with you. And I think that that's probably why also your institute is successful, is because you now have that confidence that you've carried through from those classes from before. So with that, kind of how are you using that to dive into your clients and help them out moving forward?
Yeah, it's funny you say the word confidence, because I remember doing some work on branding for a while, and I was with this organization and they were trying to get clear on the one word or one sentence that describes your brand, right? And at that time, they kept hammering on the confidence thing. Like, I helped create confidence in these loan officers, right, when it comes to real estate agents. And I would agree with that. And I think I associate with that. I don't think that's all I do, but I think that there are
Yeah.
some loan officers who do have a lack of confidence when it comes to getting in front of real estate agents. Like, oftentimes people will ask me, well, why would a realtor listen to me about X topic if it's not mortgage related? You know? And so they still have to go through that process of like, you can be seen as valuable for not for mortgage services and products. And that's actually a good thing, right? To be seen as somebody who brings more value to the conversation than just, oh, I'm a vendor, I can get great rates and products and all that stuff. So I will also say this is that confidence does come with reps, for sure. I wasn't always that confident. Like I said, I was scared when I first started, right? Which is funny, but the more, like anything, you guys know this, the more reps you do, the more confidence you get.
Yeah, but Geoff, there's a fine line between confidence and arrogance, and you seem to have found a way to not cross that. We've run into plenty of people in the housing space over the last 25 years that don't know where that line is. They live on the other side of that line, and it's hard to listen to them. It's even hard to say, even if you've seen them be successful, that you want to model anything after them because of the arrogance that they promote. You seem to have done it in such a way to where it's still approachable. So I want to learn more about, as Catherine was going, some of the clients that have chosen to follow you over the years. I mean, you're somewhat of a practitioner of the very same things that you promote.
How are you like that? There's obviously the people that can sway between the confidence and the maybe overconfidence, but you have a way of bringing out people and teaching them maybe how to be in the business in a space that they're building business, but being authentic for their personality. So can you give some examples of working with people through that?
Yeah. Well, first of all, Michael, thank you for the comment around humbleness. I get what you're saying. And I think it's the reason why I perhaps come across like that is I try and keep a beginner's mind in some sense. I remember I attended a seminar years ago by Michael Gerber, author of the E-Myth series of books. And that's what he opens up his seminars with. He's got this giant like flip chart, white chart, right? Flip chart thing. And on it, he basically lays the framework of like, you begin with a beginner's mind. Like, this is the place we're starting here today. So let go of all habits, learnings, preconceived notions that you have. And I want you to begin, right, with a blank canvas and a beginner's mind. I'm like, okay. Now, second thing is to more your question, Catherine, is I still teach agent classes. So that's another way I keep myself real or front and center. So in Vegas here, I have relationships with some title companies and some lenders, and I will come in and teach classes on their behalf because it's a great kind of sandbox for me to get to, play around and figure out what's working, what's not working. Also, as you well know, this market is very dynamic and changing. And so that kind of puts the onus on me to always be a student of what's working, or what's getting attention. Plus, I heard Dave Ramsey say years ago, the heart of a teacher, and there was something about a salesman, but the heart of a teacher versus a salesperson. And so I think that myself and anybody who comes into my world kind of has a heart of a teacher. Like, they like to lead with education. They like to teach and share ideas and concepts with people. And so that's me. I like to take things let's take this idea of teaching a realtor class, which some people think is complex and there's a lot of moving parts, and there are. And being a facilitator, I think there's an art and a science to that. And I think that's what makes us a little bit different, is that the way I structure it is it's anybody that can come in here and they can follow the system and format to take an idea or a concept they're not an expert in, but they can be 3 or 4 steps in front of the people in the room, and they can be a confident facilitator, right? Just sharing the information. And then, you do some framing at the beginning that disarms any pressure around you feeling like you need to be an expert or something like that.
Mm-hmm.
So when you're in front of the room and folks want to know more about areas that you've struggled with, what does that feel like? Are you comfortable sharing your struggles as well as you are your success?
Well, yeah. I mean, for example, if I'm going to teach a class on social media, Instagram, for example, whatever the topic is, I don't think I'm an expert in anything. Like, I'm hesitant to use that word. Like, do I have a certain skill set and knowledge and experience in realtors and teaching realtors and getting in front of? Yeah, absolutely, I do. Am I an expert in the topics we teach? No. I'm learning. And so one of the things we say at the beginning is something like, just to set the record straight, like, I am not here today to say that I am an Instagram expert or whatever the top, not to say I'm an expert, right? However, what I do is I spend a lot of time and money and resources investigating and learning as much as I possibly can about this for myself, because I'm on this journey, and who here is on this journey with me as well? Like, who here is learning this thing? And everybody's like, yeah, we're all learning it too, right? So my goal is not to show up and try to be an expert, but just to hopefully guide you. Like, one of the metaphors, or if we use, is like the lighthouse, right? A lighthouse. What's the purpose of a lighthouse? To guide ships along the way and keep them from crashing on the shore. So we'll use that as a framing statement at the beginning. So today, if I can just help guide you a little bit along your journey and keep you from crashing into the shore, that'd be my goal here today. So that's how we set up the frame.
Catherine, that really helps, I think, solidify why I think Geoff really does come to the table with that level of confidence that doesn't cross into arrogance. That's a great illustration. And for those of our audience that are tuning in, I hope you're paying attention to that he did it in a couple of ways. One, he set it up that way from the beginning. That was the way he framed it. But then he followed through on that by demonstrating it. And I think that's something that we all can learn from, is whether we have an audience of a few or an audience of many. And Geoff, I know you're an expert at coaching through people who are in front of an audience of many, but really the size of your audience isn't as important as the attitude of your heart. And that's, I think, the word you were using, Catherine, authenticity. That comes from a place that's within you, not a place you're trying to promote artificially. So Geoff, thanks for demonstrating that. Catherine, let's talk with Geoff a little bit about where his audience might be going. I mean, I think you and I talked a little bit before the recording today about the fact that, Geoff, you're in front of, I don't know, hundreds and hundreds of people, and maybe thousands by the end of the year, that are all thinking about where the housing industry sits today, as we said, in the summer of 2025, and how to prepare themselves. So I imagine as they submit to you as a trainer and as a coach, they want help. What are they looking toward? What do they think they need help with? And where would you coach them if you could tell them, hey, get prepared. These are the skills you're going to need in the future that's coming down the pipe?
Wow. These are good, deep questions here. Obviously, you guys both know that the answer to that depends a little bit on who the person is and where they're at. But I'll go back to the book you mentioned, Disrupt or Die: How to Survive and Thrive, the Digital Real Estate Shift. That was, I think, 2020. One of the real key concepts of that is, I called it Disrupt or Die, but it's really about adaptability. And one of the things I reference oftentimes is, this guy Darwin, right, who talked about survival of the fittest. But if you go a little bit deeper, his actual quote is it's not survival of the fittest. It's the most adaptable and the willingness to change and learn new skills, right? If you go deeper on the real meaning of what he was trying to say. So it's not the strongest who survive. It's the ones who are most adaptable and learn new skills. And that, I would say, is the message I want to give to anybody who's listening or watching, is how fast you adapt and learn new skills. And Lord, don't we know that's happening big time right now?
So then how would you help somebody learn to adapt easier, faster, maybe less painful?
I'd say first of all, stop complaining. Stop being romantic about the past. It's not going back to the way it was. There's some fundamentals, right, that still exist. You're going to hear me reference a lot of people when I talk. Usually, that's because I don't like to try and take credit for stuff. But I remember listening to Tom Ferry a few years back, and he had this phrase, which was called, he is asking audiences, "Are you a fading winner?" And he said, a fading winner who's somebody is succeeding because of what they've built in the past. Their relationships, they stayed in touch, they did a good job and all that, but they're not adapting to the new ways, right, of the consumer journey, et cetera. And so they feel like they're winning, but they're fading away because they're actually not capturing that next group of business. And because they're romantic about the past, or they're good doggone it, I wish it was like it used to be, And boy, isn't that a recipe for being unhappy? Because that's the one thing that's certain. But I would say, so number one, stop being a romantic. Number two, you've got to get serious about learning new skills and adapting. And And it depends on how narrow you want to go on this. If we can go into social media and talk about that, like you've also, I think, got to get clear on who it is you're trying to serve and where are they? How are you going to reach them? Because I know I've made the mistake, and I see a lot of people trying to be everywhere all at once because some guru said there, or maybe Gary Vee said you have to post 20 times a day and, double down on Facebook today. Oh, shucks. And, I mean, I think today we need to question a little bit like the context of where that advice is coming from. And is that relevant to me? For instance, what I wrote, we can riff on this if you want, but I talked about, there's a lot of people today talking about getting attention and how attention is the new currency, right?
Mm-hmm.
And I the other day, I think I did a short solo podcast on the value of attention. Like, what's the value of that, the ROI of that? And are we really trying to create attention, or are we trying to create trust? So there's a lot of people, I think, that are going through different motions and exercises and doing things because they see other people do it on social and they think they should because so-and-so got a following or whatever. And I should be freaking posting like this. And I would say, have the courage and belief to stay true to who you are. Yes, you do need to be relevant and show up where your clients are, but don't sell your soul just because you think, oh, that's what I should be doing. I don't know if that helps. I kind of went off the reservation.
No, that's perfect. I think that gives us a clear picture. So that was helpful. Thanks. Michael, did you want to chime in?
Yeah, Geoff, as I think about the way you just framed that, we joked around on LinkedIn not too long ago about, you made a comment similar to that. And I decided to be a smart aleck and quote about the little action figure post that everyone's doing. And you had to remind me, come on, it's fun. Laugh a little. It's okay.
Right.
And I think there's some true balance in that statement. Is, it's one thing to have a little fun. It's another thing to recognize that if you're building your brand, I think that last statement really rings true is, stay true to who you are. But I want to go back as you were making the point, and I don't think you were going off the rails at all. In fact, I think it's a track we probably ought to spend more time on is what I hear in the way you set that up, Geoff, is mindset. If we're looking to the future and you're going to embrace what you call that fading glory or fading winning,
winner.
Thank you. That's a fixed mindset. That's a fixed mindset that suggests that, I know what winning looks like because that either worked or it didn't work. And I'm either right or I'm wrong. And I'm going to stick to what I know works. And I think the growth mindset, which is the other choice, allows you to evolve, allows you to learn new things. And I think it has to come from that attitude of, I want to be curious. I want to learn. If you don't naturally embrace that attitude, it's very hard to manufacture it, because we see this all the time. People create their social media accounts and they're posting because someone told them they have to, but they're not embracing curiosity. They're not embracing the engagement. They're just doing it because they think it's the modern advertising. How do you coach someone through the difference between that fixed and that growth mindset?
Well, geez. I don't know that I can fix a fixed mindset. Like, and I don't even do that kind of stuff. You know what I mean? When I was doing one-on-one coaching back in the day and all that was interesting because you would get into people's, and you do a lot of that, Michael, obviously. And I think, so my skill set's a little bit more in the group setting and obviously kind of the one-to-many marketing related and things like that. Because mindset, that's the first thing. If you've got a fixed mindset and you don't think that you can do the thing, like succeed on social or build a brand, or AI is BS and it's whatever excuse you want to say about it, that unfortunately is already limiting your ability to adapt and thrive in this new world. So you will get left behind, to use one of those cliches that people use. So to be honest with you, I don't know that I can fix, and I don't even want to try, because I don't want to work with people who have a fixed mindset. Does that sound harsh?
No, it actually sounds like clarity, because it's the very same advice you gave to someone else of don't parrot and follow what everyone else does. You're staying true to yourself, which is, it's not my job to fix your mindset. It's my job to embrace you with your growth mindset and help you amplify it. If that's not who you are, you're probably not my client.
Yeah. I mean, I'll spend time with somebody and talk to them. And but once again, I have people come into my world and, for instance, we help them teach classes to real estate agents. It'll take them 3 months to book their first class. I mean, other than me cajoling and elbowing and, slapping them around a little bit, figuratively, not much else I can do, right? I'm cheering for them, but we're all adults. And by now, in this business, if you haven't learned to, work through that And I guess this comes back to Michael and Catherine, you know this very well. When you choose your clients, you got to choose who you want to work with. So I don't work with somebody who's brand new, right? I work with people who are typically 3 years or more, and even that's still kind of brand new, right? But most of the people in my world tend to be a little bit more seasoned than that. But what I'm saying is, you've got to already have a certain level of, I think, maturity and momentum and, self-responsibility if you're going to succeed in this industry.
Catherine, I could be wrong about this, but you and I have talked about parenting as analogies for some of the things we coach on. And what I heard loud and clear was, just like we say with our kids, I can't want this more than you want this. You've got to find it within yourself to want this. If you do, I'm going to be here to help you. I'm going to cheer the hardest. I'm going to work the hardest, but I can't do it for you. You've got to want it. And Catherine, I know as a mom, you can relate to that because you've got two strong girls who seem to know what they want and they're going for it.
That's right. That's right. That's so true. We cannot do everything for somebody, regardless of if they're a buyer, a realtor, a coaching client. We just can't. So you do have to let them adult a little bit. So that was a good way to put that. All right. Well, with that, are there any little nuggets that you're seeing in your day-to-day world that you're getting more requests on training for, or you just see as kind of an upcoming hot topic that we should be watching for and keeping our eye on?
Yeah, I mean, obviously AI is a hot topic, right? And I think that will continue to evolve. There's a mix of people in the world or in our space right now about that, people who are embracing it and figuring out how to use it, and other people who are still stuck in their old ways. And I think that's a mistake if you're doing that, because are you guys using it every day?
You're using it right now.
Right? Exactly. Right now, unbeknownst to me. So that's one of those examples of learn new skills. It's kind of like, when I stand up in front of a crowd and I'm holding up my mobile phone for people who can't see it, like, to be able to capture content on this that is a new skill that myself, being well over 40, has had to learn how to do this. And it's not been easy, and it's still not easy. But if I want to remain relevant, I've got to learn this new skill, as painful as it is. If I want to be healthy and live a long life and see my kids, get married and do whatever they're going to do, I got to take care of myself now, or else I'm going to be, not here. And nobody wants that. That's a skill. Everything we need to do and learn as a skill. And it's just a question of, like, what are the skills that you think, or what's the constraint in your business? Let's bring it back to being tactical. What's the main constraint in your business? And for the people in my world who I come and talk to, it's going to be opportunities, deals, leads, right? Things like that. And we're in a bit of a challenging market. I call it a transaction recession. So great. What's the answer to that? And in the context of realtors, when I ask loan officers, do you need more realtors, better realtors, or do you need a better approach? And the answer is they need all three. That's what they typically say. And that's what I help them with. So that's what I'm hearing a lot of is even though, like, leverage tech, leverage the things one of the fundamentals that still exists. We talked about this, I think, before we hit record is the relationships. Like, as cool as social media is, AI, digital, and all that kind of stuff, when I coach loan officers, the primary pillar that I still focus on for 8 out of 10 people is those referral relationships, because that's the now business, right? And then the other pillars, which we've talked about here, digital, all that, are those other pillars you layer in, but those are a little bit more longer term. And I think, to answer your question, Catherine, is don't make the mistake, if you're listening, is to get distracted by the bright shiny of all this, push button automation and AI is going to do it all for me, and this and that and the other. Because I see people joining these, like, AI groups and this and that, and, like, going crazy with prompts and spending 3 hours a day figuring out prompts. And I'm like, yeah, but is that at the cost of you actually talking to actual people, referral partners and others, past client database, cold leads, et cetera? Because that should be job number one. Get that done first, and then layer in those other things.
Geoff, so much here. And if you're listening today to our podcast, I hope you hear that the heart of the teacher is the attitude of the student. It's always be learning, always be curious about what's possible, always ask yourself, where is my audience going? And am I willing to learn new things to join them on that journey? You didn't say this, Geoff, but the word picture in my mind was, I guess if you have a skill that is timeless and you don't ever want to learn anything new. It's not that that you have to die, but maybe like our Amish friends, you're just going to live in a very small insulated community. It's not going to be a growth community. And I think you're helping people who want to be in a growth community. They want to find new ways to attract new opportunities, whether they're on the real estate side or the lending side. You're bringing them together. And I just can't thank you enough for joining us.
It's been a wonderful conversation. I appreciate what you guys do as well. And I look forward to seeing you guys in person, hopefully soon at an upcoming event.
Absolutely. We hope to see you as well. Thanks so much, Geoff. With that, I'm going to get things closed out. You've been listening to the Building Bigger Lives podcast. Today, we had Geoff Zimpfer, and he is out there in lots of places. We'll put all of his links. He's got a website. You can find his podcast all over. So check him out. Also, you can find us on Instagram, YouTube, Spotify, and anywhere you find your podcasts. Thanks so much. Please share, rate, and listen. Thank you so much for being a listener of our podcast today.